become routine, of course, is the response of those who oppose any kind of common sense gun legislation. We need more guns, they'll argue. Fewer gun safety laws. Does anybody really believe that? There is a gun for roughly every man, woman, and child in America. So how can you, with a straight face, make the argument that more guns will make us safer?
I guess you didn't read the book, More Guns, Less Crime, by the great John Lott, who's president of Crime Prevention Research Center. And John joins us. Hello, John. Maybe you should send the president an autographed copy.
I think he's already familiar with it. Barack and I overlapped for 4 years when I was at the University of Chicago Law School. So,
I remember that you telling me that. Yes, I'm aware of that. All right. Well, welcome aboard. All right. Talk about, address what he just said. First of all, have you heard from Obama, from Hillary, from anybody on the left that hysterically comes out immediately before they even take the bodies away from one of these shootings? Have you heard one law proposed from them that specifically that would have stopped any of these mass shootings?
No, I'm glad you bring that up, because that's something that's really irritated me a lot, that he goes out, pushes for these expanded background checks. Hillary Clinton did the same thing yesterday. Before we even know the facts in this case, we don't even know how the individual obtained the gun. And besides that, Oregon, since the beginning of August, has had this type of law that everybody's pushing. So it doesn't seem like it stopped it in Oregon's case. But even more importantly, none of these shootings that the president talks about, he mentioned 15 times that he's been out to talk about them, not a single one of those cases would have been stopped by any of the laws that he's been talking about, particularly the one that he keeps on pushing on these expanded background checks. And it just seems like an incredible disconnect that's there. And but they keep pushing it, even not just this time, but when they had the Roanoke, Virginia shooting in which the 2 journalists were killed, they also jumped on it, within a couple hours, within an hour, in fact, in a couple cases.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Chris, one of the producers on the show, gave me service because the president also said, and I guess maybe he narrows it down when he talks about civilized countries or whatever the terminology is. But even when you look at gun homicides and gun ownership listed by country, the U.S. does not have the worst firearm murder rate. That goes to Honduras, El Salvador, Jamaica. The U.S. is number 28 per 100,000 people. And then, according to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, there's another survey out there, and the U.S. is behind Norway, Finland, Slovakia, Israel, Switzerland, when it comes to actually has a higher rate of rampage shooting fatalities. So, I don't even know where he gets these things from.
The United States ranks about 9th compared to countries in Europe in terms of either the rate of these mass public shootings or the fatalities from them. And look, the thing you have to take into account to some extent is a lot of these European countries are a lot smaller. 4 million, 8 million. You may have 40 million people. Germany maybe 80 million. But, we're over 320 million people that are here. And so you have to kind of adjust a little bit for the population differences. If you take Europe as a whole, there's not a big difference in the per capita rate of mass public shootings compared to the United States. Europe has had the worst of the mass public shootings. The Norway killer, if you ignore the bomb deaths, you still have 67 people who were shot to death in that one attack and 110 wounded. Germany has 2 of the worst 5 public school shootings that have occurred, K through 12 public school shootings.
Right.
And so, it's.
And John, all this talk from the president ignores what happens every weekend in Chicago and D.C., in parts in New York. He chooses to ignore that. But in the minute we have left, less than a minute, really more guns, less crime. But that's absolutely true, right?
Well, look, it's true generally, but in these mass public shootings, it seems hard for me to believe that we can just ignore the fact that the attack yesterday, as well as all the other ones that President Obama has talked about in his administration, as well as all but two since at least 1950, keep on occurring where guns are banned. In this community college yesterday, if you brought a water pistol,
you'd be kicked out of school.
A BB gun or a firearm on school property, if you're a student, you get expelled. If you're a faculty member, you get fired. Those are real life-altering penalties.
And John is absolutely correct. That's from the bylaws in the book, handbook of that college. Even a water pistol, you get fired or kicked out of school. John, we'll leave it there. Great to talk to you, the great John Lott. Up next, Jonathan Gilliam will join us to talk about his perspective. Don't go away.